Welcome to the 5-Minute Warfare podcast from 5minutewarfare.com, where we dive into history's most pivotal battles and military strategies in around 5 minutes. If you enjoy the show and would like to support us, why not consider buying us a coffee? Head on over to 5minutewarfare.com/coffee to see how. This is episode 14, The Siege of Jerusalem, Bloodshed in the First Crusade. The Siege of Jerusalem in 1099, a defining moment in the First Crusade, stands as one of the bloodiest and most brutal episodes in medieval history. After 3 years of arduous campaigning, the Crusaders, driven by religious fervour and the promise of salvation, set their sights on the ultimate prize: Jerusalem, the Holy City. The capture of Jerusalem had been the primary goal of the First Crusade from the outset, and the siege that followed marked the culmination of a series of battles, hardships, and alliances forged in the name of reclaiming the city from Muslim control. The First Crusade had begun in 1096, when Pope Urban II called for Christian knights to take up arms and reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim rule. This call resonated deeply throughout Western Europe, where the idea of liberating the Holy Land inspired thousands of knights, nobles, and peasants to embark on the perilous journey to the east. The Crusaders saw themselves as soldiers of Christ, embarking on a holy mission to restore Christian control over sacred sites and protect the Christian pilgrims who travelled there. By the summer of 1099, after years of hardship and bloody encounters, the Crusaders reached the walls of Jerusalem. The city was under the control of the Fatimid Caliphate, and its defences were formidable. High walls, strong fortifications, and a well-prepared garrison stood between the Crusaders and their prize. The Christian forces, exhausted and diminished after years of campaigning, faced a daunting task. Despite their reduced numbers, the Crusaders were fueled by a powerful sense of purpose. For them, this was more than just a military conquest. It was a divine mission. The Crusaders began their siege of Jerusalem in mid-June 1099. They faced immediate challenges, not least of which was a severe lack of water. The region's arid climate, combined with the scorched earth tactics employed by the Fatimid defenders, left the Crusader forces dehydrated and demoralized. To make matters worse, their siege equipment was limited, and they lacked the resources needed to mount an effective assault on the city's towering walls. However, the Crusaders were nothing if not resourceful. With guidance from Genoese sailors who had accompanied them, they began to construct siege towers and other devices using timber from the surrounding countryside. As the siege progressed, these machines were slowly built and moved towards the city's walls, inching ever closer to their goal. On the 14th of July, 1099, after nearly a month of preparation, the Crusaders launched their final assault on Jerusalem. Using their siege towers, they attempted to breach the walls from multiple directions. The fighting was fierce, with both sides displaying remarkable courage and tenacity. Arrows, stones, and boiling oil rained down from the walls as the defenders fought desperately to repel the invaders. Inside the city, panic and chaos spread among the residents as the Crusaders pressed forward. The turning point came when one of the siege towers reached the section of the wall near the northern gate. Here, Crusader forces led by the Norman nobleman Duke Godfrey of Bouillon gained a foothold. The defenders, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the attack, could no longer hold their ground. By midday on the 15th of July, the Crusaders had broken through and entered the city. What followed was a massacre of staggering proportions. Accounts from the time describe scenes of horrifying bloodshed, as the Crusaders, driven by religious zeal and years of pent-up frustration, unleashed their fury on the city's inhabitants. Men, women, and children, regardless of faith, were killed indiscriminately. The streets of Jerusalem were said to have run red with blood. Muslim and Jewish residents were slaughtered, while Christian pilgrims were spared in what was seen by the Crusaders as divine retribution. The scale of the violence shocked even some of the Crusaders themselves. Chroniclers like Raymond of Aguilers and Fulcher of Chartres wrote of the carnage with a mixture of awe and horror. For many of the Crusaders, the capture of Jerusalem was seen as the fulfillment of God's will, a righteous victory that justified the bloodshed. For the Muslim and Jewish inhabitants of the city, however, it was a nightmarish event that left an indelible scar on the region's history. After the slaughter, the Crusaders gathered in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the site believed to be where Christ had been crucified and buried. Here, they gave thanks for their victory, seeing their success as a divine sign that their cause had been just. Godfrey of Bouillon, one of the key leaders of the Crusade, was named Defender of the Holy Sepulchre and became the de facto ruler of Jerusalem. The Crusaders had achieved their goal, but at an immense cost in human lives. The capture of Jerusalem marked a pivotal moment in the First Crusade and established the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Christian stronghold in the heart of the Muslim world. The victory, however, was only temporary. The Crusaders' presence in the Holy Land would lead to a series of further conflicts over the following centuries, as Muslim forces sought to reclaim the territory they had lost. The siege of Jerusalem in 1099 remains a symbol of the religious fervour and violence that characterized the Crusades. It highlights the complex interplay between faith, warfare, and politics that defined this period in history. While the Crusaders believed they were acting in God's name, the bloodshed that followed their victory reminds us of the devastating human cost of religiously motivated conflict. Today, the legacy of the First Crusade and the siege of Jerusalem continues to be debated by historians. Was it a triumph of faith or a tragedy of intolerance and brutality? The answer depends on one's perspective, but there is no denying that the events of July 1099 left a lasting impact on the Middle East and the world at large. The siege of Jerusalem, with its combination of military strategy, religious zeal, and shocking violence, remains one of the most memorable episodes of the Crusades. I hope you enjoyed that episode of 5-Minute Warfare from 5minutewarfare.com. If you did, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you would like to support us more directly, please consider buying us a coffee. Head on over to 5minutewarfare.com/coffee to see how. You may also be interested in our other 5-minute podcasts. Check them out at 5minuteproductions.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.